You feel like you don't matter, feel like your life doesn't matter, get involved.
Tēnā rau atu koe. Thank you for your very passionate response to that, and I really appreciate the
Thank you.
briefs of evidence and our kōrero today. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Do Maori people have a legal right to go to hospital to have a baby?
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
And what about people like yourselves, midwives? You have a legal responsibility to let authorities know that there's been a birth.
Yes, we do. Under the Health and Disability Practitioners Act. Yes.
How long has that been in force?
1980 something.
19?
Was it 1990? Oh, so that's something different. But in New Zealand, under the Health and Disability Act, the hospitals have to provide, legislatively have to provide care, have to provide health care. Midwives are registered. Interestingly, Māori had their own way of birthing, and a Pākehā Scottish woman came over here and took a petition to England and petitioned that nursing and midwifery in New Zealand should be regulated. So New Zealand became the first country in the world to regulate Pākehā nursing and midwifery. It was the forebear of the Tūhunga Suppression Act. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So that happened before forebear. That happened.
Yes, in 18. That
Yes.
happened in 18. I've got the dates for that. We can talk about that later.
But despite that, you see,
Yeah.
Jean,
Yes,
you look at me.
yes,
There's 7 of us. All
Yeah.
7 of us were
Yeah.
born
yep,
not by midwives or
yep,
by midwives, but
Yeah.
they were my
Whānau.
grandmother
yep, yep,
at home.
yep. Yes,
They, Mai and I have a grand-aunt,
yep,
17 children, all
Yeah.
born on a horse.
yep.
Almost.
Yep. Yes,
Get off the horse, have the
Yeah.
baby, 2 hours later, back on the horse,
Yeah.
and she's away again.
Yeah.
No midwives,
That's
no
right.
hospital.
yep. They regulated us. They made us do it their way when we had our own ways.
All right, all right.
Yep.
Let me
Yep,
give you another example. The wife of a tohunga who taught me, 15 children. 13 of those children were born just like our grand-aunt
Yeah.
Parethrap.
yep,
2 of them, she decided to go to hospital. Those 2 are dead.
yep,
The rest are still alive. Going back to my aunt, who
Yeah.
was grand-aunt, having children literally off the saddle of a horse. Her oldest children are nearly 100 years old now, 3 of them. Alive, well. Why do we need to go to hospital?
because in 1918, the war gave a pension to the soldiers overseas, to the wives and children of the war of the soldiers. If your child was not registered, the mother and the child could not receive a government grant. So the government imposed a legislation that said you have to be registered with us, otherwise you get nothing. So what happened is our Māori whānau required our children to be registered, and the government brought in a law that forbid them from having their babies at home. We are better off if we are allowed to continue our own cultural ways of knowing and cultural ways of being.
Well, you see, the prospect of our going back to those traditional ways of birthing is great, given that if our children are going to be taken away from us, then that's probably what will happen. There's safety in that.
Yeah.
I was born in the 1940s. I didn't go to school until 1954. I was nearly 8 years old. No one knew that I existed except my whānau and everyone else, I guess, that's connected with me.
Yeah.
But I didn't get registered until 1954.
And you turned out all right.
I turned out good. I turned out good. So I should be the example.
Yeah, yeah,
Should I not be?
yeah, you should be. Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think about Mokopuna Authority? Disestablish, burn down Oranga Tamariki and create something new. Because what you're saying, the only thing you're not saying is disestablish it, burn it down.
I believe there are children in this country, Māori children, in need of care and protection. I don't deny that we have examples where children need to be somewhere safe other than with parents. But I believe that that needs to be designed by Māori for Māori, that we have the answers to that. The current Oranga Tamariki system to be burnt down, yes, of course, but so too does the other Crown entities. The education system, the hospital systems, the social welfare, the housing systems, all of those systems fit in like a jigsaw puzzle. If we burn down one, or we don't create change, we're only going to have pockets of something that works, but in the main it won't work. For example, in the Māori Land Court, they took out the ability for our Māori children to be whāngai, because it used to happen in the Māori Land Court. And they put all the adoptions in the adoption court. Our whānau were tied to land. Our babies were tied to land through whakapapa, and you know that. So how do we create a safe space for Māori children? We have to be able to design that by Māori for Māori in ways that meet our Māori needs, but we have to be resourced to do that. We have to have the ability to do that. We have to have the space to do that. Currently, we've got all this Māori land, Māori own, and we can't build on it. There are laws that prevent us from being Māori in this country, to being Māori the way we want to be. They see it as alternative. It's not, it's our normal. The question is huge. How do we create a safe space for children, Māori children? Huge question. Not the way it's being done at the moment anyway, we know that.
I hear you talk about wahine, and I so support that. About they being the midwives. But you know, 1907, TeHuia's Suppression Act, Maunga Pohatu was full of male midwives.
Yeah, yeah.
Some really famous ones.
Absolutely.
From TeHuia, Wifitu, big man,
Yeah.
big hands. One of the fastest person to shoe a horse and employed by organisations like this, racing, shoe a horse in 4 minutes
Wow.
and go back and deliver a baby.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Well sought after at Waitangi and Maunga Pohatu to deliver a baby. The grandfather, the grand-aunt that I talked about with 15 children, the husband delivered all those children.
Yeah.
So we can actually do that, you
Yeah,
know,
we can. We can do that.
and yet we have to conform to law.
We have to conform to their way.
And of course, you know, being a tribunal member, I'm not for one moment advocating that we break the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask that when we get our kaupapa Māori midwifery program going, you come and talk to our students?
I will have great pleasure in doing that because, in fact, I might even get people who know Wiwhitu to come along and talk about this man who died in 1987, I think it was. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Did all kinds of things, had no tapu,
Yeah,
and yet he was from Maunga Pohatu.
yeah.
Disinter tūpapaku, no trouble.
Yeah.
Police can't do the things he used to do.
No. That's right. Can I tell you that sometimes I birth a baby and the mother goes in the shower and dad goes outside for a smoke and you do your notes and you go back in the room and there's only a cot in the room and only a baby in the cot and you feel like the room is filled with 1,000 people
Right.
and your hair stands up on the back of your neck and you walk into that room and I always say karakia and I say to them, your baby's safe now, your baby's here now, and leave them to it because you know what? We are still connected. Even though we've come this far and Pākehā have insisted we learn this and do that and do it their way, we cannot rid ourselves of the fact that as Māori we are intricately connected through whakapapa.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Like my colleagues, there is much I could ask you. I just want to really focus in on a couple of
Yes.
they're big picture questions, but they follow from everything that you've been saying.
Yes.
So right at the end of your brief, you talk about a process for overall delegation and devolution to Māori of all of the powers and responsibilities
Yes.
of Oranga Tamariki, and that's a call we've heard throughout.
Yes.
So there's two issues as we see it. One is what can be done to limit, prevent the flow of tamariki into Oranga Tamariki care. That's one set of issues. And there are another set of issues in relation to all of those tamariki currently in Oranga Tamariki care or who have been placed in permanent placements. So just separating those two issues and starting with the first one. So how to stop this this machine, and the question really comes from your current work with the health provider and the 80 staff that you have, because one of the by Māori for Māori
Yeah.
call consistently identifies the
Yeah.
range of needs
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
marginalised whānau you're talking
Yeah.
about, the ones that are in desperate need of help because
Yeah.
of poverty, because of all sorts of issues.
Yeah.
So with that hat on, so you're in that space, what could be done to enhance the ability of organisations such as yours to provide those kind of services to those in need whānau?
Oh, thank you for the question. It's a great question, and everybody knows the answer. It's by Māori for Māori. You know, that's singularly the best option that we could do. How do we do that? There are huge government legislations that prevent a lot of the work being done. For instance, I can care for a woman and birth 10 of her babies, and she comes to see me and she wants a pregnancy test and it's negative. Now I can't give her a contraceptive. She's outside my scope of practice. So when we try and combine the needs of Māori with legislation that prevents us from providing them with the care they need, there is something inherently wrong in this country. Another reason we need to relook at it in full is with children. We have a well child service that was developed by an ethnologist. He was white supremacist who believed that white children mattered. And so then we see Plunkett. It targets children and it looks at children as individuals and not as a collective, as a whānau. And some of the health programs that are enforced upon Māori are not don't meet Māori needs. So when we talk about how do we keep children out of the current Oranga Tamariki system, we have to go back to basics. How do we keep families safe? They have to be somewhere to live. There has to be a proper housing. Poverty needs to be addressed. They had a 1987 review of the social welfare system and took 10% funding off all the beneficiaries, mostly women, single parents.
Yes. So just in the, I'm sorry to rush you because it's,
Yeah.
So I'm broadly aware of a number of the steps that have got us to the current predicament. My real interest is in what constructive recommendations might we make to government as to how to prevent further harm and to make some of the systemic changes that would produce the best benefit.